Hey everyone, it's Jessica Ayla, and this is my partner, Don Gardner. We're the owners of the PCS by Vets real estate team under Galvin and Gardner Brokerage. So we are here today because there's some important stuff going on in the state of Colorado. We have our elections coming up. And in those elections, there's some very important propositions. In particular, we want to talk about one of them, which is Proposition HH. All of this voting needs to be done prior to November 7th. So we want to make sure that you understand this proposition because it can be very confusing what's getting put out there. In our opinion, it's very misleading of how it's being portrayed to the people. So we want to make sure that you understand, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Essentially, Proposition HH is the state of Colorado is proposing to lower our property tax rate minimally in exchange for them keeping our Tabor refund. And now some of you, I'm sure, have no idea what a Tabor refund is. So Dawn is going to talk about what the Tabor refund actually is, just to help things get a little bit more clear as we go forward.
Hello. So yes, Tabor. Tabor stands for the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and Colorado is the only state in the United States that has a Tabor provision in their state constitution. It was enacted in 1992 thanks to what we consider a champion for taxpayer rights. His name was Doug Bruce. But back in 1992, this was added to the Colorado Constitution, and the spirit of Tabor was there so that the state cannot grow too fast on the back of our tax dollars without our permission, okay? Tabor basically puts a cap on the amount of our tax dollars that the state can spend. So they collect our taxes annually, and then with Tabor, they have a cap, okay? If the state exceeds that cap, they have to refund the taxpayers that money. And speaking of a refund, I remember last year, I think most taxpayers received a check for $750 via the Tabor refund, okay? Well, it's interesting because, I think the state really wants to keep that refund money, okay? They've showed that back in 2019 when they tried to hit the ballot with a measure called Proposition CC. And thankfully, the voters shot that down. Well, this time around, they're trying a slightly different approach with what I feel is some misleading language on the ballot, okay? They're trying to say or spin this like they're going to be reducing our taxes. But what they're not saying is that they're also going to raid the Tabor refund cookie jar to do that. On the ballot language itself, it actually says shall our taxes be decreased, right? And what's most people going to say? Oh yeah, let's do that. But in reality, this is not a tax decrease, it's actually a tax increase, okay? So let me share with you a great example of why I say that. One of the provisions of Tabor states that Colorado must seek voter approval if they're going to increase our taxes. They can't just do it arbitrarily. They have to get voter approval. But they do not need voter approval for a tax decrease. So if the state wants to lower our taxes like they're trying to say they're going to do on this ballot, they don't need to put it on the ballot to do that.
They could do it at any time.
They could do it at any time.
Right. Yep.
Exactly, right? So this is on the ballot because they know it's actually a tax increase. And because of Tabor, they have to put this on the ballot when they know they're going to increase our taxes.
And the problem that I have is that this is going to be, again, going to the state of Colorado and not our county. It's supposed to be going to our county, our local city governments, and they are now actually going to be losing money. And if you read, and we will be posting some language of what it actually says on the ballots, it's saying that they are going to be taking the money away from our local cities, and we need that. And it says that they're going to refund, but just pay attention to the verbiage really carefully in there because it says minimally and if it's available in their budget. So we have a video that we want to post that we happen to come across. It's a very, very good video. They're professionals at this, and they'll probably do a way better job than Dawn and I can with all the graphics and everything. They're professionals. But this video was done by Ben Murray at the independentinstitute.org as well as the Fiscal Policy Center. So these are very reputable sites, and they posted this video. They can go into really great detail and explain exactly what Proposition HH is. It's not very long. Please take the time to listen to it. The other thing that we also really want to let you know about that's not in this video is your local realtors and how our association feels about this. You want to tell that, Don?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Pikes Peak Association of Realtors is advising their realtor body to vote no on Proposition HH, okay? And as well, also even a bigger body, the Colorado Association of Realtors is advising the realtor body to vote no on this as well. Why? Because it's not good for real estate. And it's not a tax decrease, folks. It's actually a tax increase. And we really, again, Jessica mentioned earlier about this video that we're going to be recommending you guys watch. I have to honestly tell you, while I was watching the video, my blood boiled a little bit over it, because it's being presented one way, but it's actually something completely different. Another example, remember I talked earlier about Tabor places a cap on what the state can collect in tax revenues. If they exceed that cap, they have to refund that money to us, right? Well, one of the provisions of Prop HH is that if it passes, the state can arbitrarily raise the tax rate, what was it, 1%?
Up to 1% every year.
Without voter approval.
Without your permission, yeah. Get that. It's crazy.
So we like to think our state legislature really does not like Tabor. Okay, remember, it's taxpayer Bill of Rights. It's our Bill of Rights, everybody here.
And I don't know if you guys remember, but this last spring, everybody was freaking out. Our team helped hundreds of you guys when you guys were all getting your new values on your homes. Everybody was freaking out about the property taxes that you guys were paying. Remember, as your value of your home goes up, your taxes are going to continue to go up. That's just the way it is. But just keep in mind that now they're literally going to be keeping all that extra money if this were to get passed. So we just want to make sure that you guys are educated, that you really understand what's going on, the ins and outs about this proposition. So we just wanted to make sure that this was brought to you today, and we took some time because we're really passionate about this. So look out for this video that's going to be, we're going to be posting it right up here right after this, and please watch it, and please let us know if you have any questions. If you are not already registered to vote, please go register, you guys. This is really important. We need your vote. If you haven't been to your mailbox in a while, please go walk over there and take a peek. If you're registered, you should already have your ballots in the mail, along with a blue booklet that has a lot of information in there. So please make sure you check that and vote prior to November 7th. November 7th, that is the deadline. And I believe it is at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. So make sure you vote before then. Anything else, Tom?
No, I just want to thank everybody for watching, and thanks for chiming in and hearing why we're suggesting a no for the vote for Prop HH. Thanks again.
Yeah, as always, guys, PCS by Vets Real Estate Team is always here for you. So please reach out with any questions that you have. We're always here. All right, take care, everybody.
What HH is all about and why you need to vote no. You'll lose far more than you gain if it passes. Now let's dive into the why, starting with those $750 checks everyone got in the mail last year from the state of Colorado. Governor Polis called the checks Colorado Cashback. We get those refunds because of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, or TABOR, in Colorado's Constitution. The state can only keep that money if they ask us. And that's why Proposition HH will be on the ballot this November. It's not tax relief. It's a tax increase that ends your TABOR refunds. Unfortunately, the question voters will see on the ballot tells a very different story. It begins, quote, "Shall the state reduce property taxes for homes and businesses?" If you read that and think it means Proposition HH will lower your property taxes, I recommend you keep watching. But first, take a second to like this video and subscribe to our channel. It tells YouTube to put this video in front of other Coloradans so they can learn the truth about Proposition HH too. Now here's the truth. Whether voters adopt or reject Proposition HH, property taxes will rise more than at any other time in state history. So why does the ballot question say Proposition HH will, quote, reduce property taxes? It's pretty simple. The politicians who put it on the ballot also wrote the ballot language, and they want you to vote for it. Remember, the primary effect of HH is to raise state taxes by taking away taxpayer refunds. It's not a tax cut. But if they asked directly to keep your refunds, voters would just say no. The legislature knows this because they tried taking away our Tabor refunds in 2019 with Proposition CC, and voters rejected it. Proposition HH is another attempt to take away refunds. This time, politicians are trying a different tactic to win voter approval, and the impending increase in property taxes is central to their scheme. Property taxes are set to rise 40% or more across Colorado this year. In the spirit of never let a crisis go to waste, politicians came up with Proposition HH in response. They call it a property tax reduction. Let's investigate that. Proposition HH would reduce the residential assessment rate by 0.065% and exempt $40,000 from a home's value for tax purposes. But those changes will not reduce property taxes. Again, whether HH passes or fails, property taxes across Colorado will go up the most in state history. It's not a tax reduction, but the ballot language doesn't tell you that. It says the measure will, quote, reduce property taxes. Not true. It would only slightly scale back the record increase in property taxes. Let's take a look at Douglas County as an example. Right now, property taxes are set to rise by an average of 43% in Douglas County. If HH passes, property taxes will rise by an average of about 39% instead. It's more or less the same story across the state, but it does depend on the particular homeowner. Every situation is different. So here's the big question. Why are property taxes rising so much to begin with? It's a combination of things. First, in 2020, the state legislature repealed the Gallagher Amendment to the state constitution. The amendment kept property taxes in check by lowering the residential assessment rate as home values rose over time. Because Gallagher was repealed, taxes rose in line with the recent increase in home values. So here's the important takeaway. Had the legislature simply done nothing, had they just left things alone, you wouldn't be watching this video because we wouldn't be facing this massive property tax increase. Under the Gallagher Amendment, the statewide assessment rate would be 5% or lower for 2023. In the Douglas County example, property taxes would be going up 0 to 10% if politicians had just left everything alone. But because politicians intervened, the rate is now 6.765% rather than 5%. Proposition HH would fix the rate at 6.7%. To put it simply, your property taxes are going up around 40% because the rate is around 40% higher than it would have been under Gallagher. Decreasing the rate by less than 1% doesn't fix the problem. To get voters to agree to repealing the Gallagher Amendment back in 2020, Governor Polis promised to replace it with something better. Proposition HH is supposed to be that replacement, but instead of improving things, HH would lock in the property tax increase caused by repealing the Gallagher Amendment. And it ensures property taxes will continue to rise with home values in the future. That's because it just lowers the rate once by only 0.065%. It does not mandate any other future rate reductions to control the growth in taxes. Why does that matter? Because it means HH does nothing to prevent another 40% increase in your property taxes the next time your home's value goes up 40%. If HH were just a bad replacement for the Gallagher Amendment, that alone would be enough to vote no and demand politicians give us the real property tax reform they promised. But it's far worse. In addition to locking in a massive property tax increase, HH also creates a new tax increase at the state level. By taking away our Tabor refund money, HH would increase state taxes by up to $12.5 billion in the first decade, $65 billion over 2 decades, $200 billion over 3 decades, and so on. Notice taxes go up more and more the longer HH is in place. Now, putting the loss of your Tabor refund aside for a second, you might think, well, at least my property taxes will go up by a little less this year if I support HH. There's a big problem with that thinking. First, even with a little bit of property tax relief, if you can call it that, HH is a huge net tax increase. But more importantly, if we approve Proposition HH, we will never get the property tax reform we were promised. Our politicians will say, HH was that reform. You'll get a 39% property tax increase instead of a 43% increase, or whatever your individual situation looks like. And lawmakers will say their job's done. That's why we formed Taxpayers for a Better Deal as the issue committee to educate Coloradans about Proposition HH. We oppose HH not just because it would end Tabor refunds and still result in a massive property tax increase, but because we were promised a better deal. Unfortunately, rather than giving us real property tax relief, our politicians chose to put taxpayers in a lose-lose situation. Here are the options they're giving us. Number one, we can vote against HH and accept the largest property tax increase in state history. Or even worse, we can vote in favor of HH, give up our Tabor refunds forever, in addition to accepting the largest property tax increase in state history. Under the circumstances, the best thing Coloradans can do is reject Proposition HH and demand that Governor Polis and the legislature give us a better deal. Property taxes will be locked in at the end of the year, so time is running out. The legislature can still fix this, but Governor Polis must call a special legislative session this year to give us the property tax relief he promised. Before we wrap, I want to speak directly to a couple of groups the authors of Proposition HH are trying extra hard to entice here: seniors and renters. If you keep reading the ballot question, it says, quote, shall the state reduce property taxes for homes and businesses? I read that earlier. And then it says, including expanding property tax relief for seniors. This is a sleight of hand. To say that seniors get an expansion in property tax relief is sort of a white lie. Right now, seniors can qualify for a $100,000 senior homestead exemption. HH would give all homeowners a $40,000 exemption. I mentioned that earlier, increasing the exemption for seniors to $140,000. That's what they're calling an expansion in relief for seniors. If you're a senior, don't be fooled. They're not giving you special relief. This is a bad deal for you. Under HH, seniors' property taxes will go way up and you'll lose your Tabor refunds. Remember, HH is on the ballot because it's a tax increase. They don't need your permission to lower your taxes. In fact, the same legislators who put HH on the ballot have voted repeatedly to kill bills that would have expanded the senior exemption and made the exemption portable. They weren't doing you any favors then, and they're not doing you any favors now. Seniors, don't allow politicians to manipulate and use you. Vote no on HH. Now for renters. Any benefit HH offers goes to property owners only, so a renter who votes yes on HH is voting to give up their refund for nothing. When we began sounding the alarm about this, the legislature scrambled to pass separate legislation to win renters over. They came up with House Bill 1311. It says, if HH passes, Tabor refunds will go out evenly in 2024. Why does this matter? Well, it gets a bit in the weeds, but follow me here. Remember, HH would increase state taxes immediately by reducing Tabor refunds, and it would claw back more and more of your Tabor refund each year until there's nothing left. But in the first year, taxpayers will still see a refund, just a little smaller one. By redistributing those refunds evenly in that first year rather than based on what each taxpayer paid, higher earners will get less and lower earners will get a little more, just for the first year. So House Bill 1311 gives lower earners, who are generally renters, a little bit larger refund once before taking away their refunds forever. If you don't think this is a fair deal, if you want a better deal, what can you do? Vote against Proposition HH and tell Governor Polis to call a special session and give us a better deal that includes real property tax relief without raiding our Tabor.